You're listening to 87.1 Caroline Radio, KCGN Bakersfield, and Blind Advocate Radio. Welcome back, listener. How are you? I'm glad you had a good week. I'm doing all right, and tonight we are speaking with a very special guest, someone by the name of Shane Kubat, who has just told me that he not only is someone who does a lot of treasure hunting with a metal detector, but he has, well, done a lot of YouTube videos. And basically, he has a message, which is that blind people should, get out of their homes and explore the world around them. Basically, Shane, the point, or I guess the point or idea of Aaron's opinion is that this is a radio show where I talk about critical issues in the blindness community. Welcome. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. So, yeah, listener, the first time I encountered Shane was in one of the groups on Facebook, right? And you
Yes.
posted a video. Let's kind of talk about it in the order that that I remember it. You posted a video about leaving your home and walking to a pond. A very interesting video. And indeed, you found the pond. Why don't you kind of walk us through that experience for a bit?
Well, let me start with, I have an eye disease, retinitis pigmentosa.
Sure.
And with that eye disease, it causes you to lose your eyesight very slow. For some people, it may be quicker, but for me, it was a slow progression. So I lost most of my eyesight by the time I was in my 30s. And as most people lose their eyesight, you have a tough time. And I do not do things on my own. I depend on other people. So it came to a point in my life where I decided I need to do things on my own with no help at all. So I wasn't using my cane as much as I should have been. So recently, I've started using it more and more. Probably in the past couple of years, I've been using it a lot more. So I decided to go on a 1 mile walk to a pond. It's like on the road I live on. So I wanted to do that on my own. So in the video, that's what I did. I made it to that pond on my own. I didn't exactly find the pond on my own. I had to FaceTime somebody to get me a little bit of direction, because I really didn't want to start walking around and fall into the pond. So, but I made it right in front of the pond, so I was only about 20 feet away. So I did pretty good on that. And it made me feel super independent. And that's the most important thing when losing your eyesight. You gotta feel independent.
Sure. Yeah, this radio show has been, well, it's been a podcast for a while. As this moment, we're transitioning to more and more of a radio show. But I'll tell you, I've interviewed a lot of blind people, and for me, Shane, I was born blind with glaucoma.
Okay.
Seven corneal transplants later, I have usable vision. But I've told people I cannot comprehend, nor will I try to comprehend, the challenge that it must be to lose vision later in life. That must be really weird. That must be really, 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 really overwhelming. And the one thing that stands out to me that everyone says is when you lose your vision as an older adult, you just feel this great loss of independence and this great sense of loss. So it must be really difficult. But
I actually never thought of it as that point of view. So
well, good. Many of my other guests have expressed that to me, that they feel it's super hard for them, physically, emotionally, socially. So I think, yeah, I think it's important to have independence, but then once in a while, you still need to ask for help when you truly need it. So it goes both ways. It really,
yeah.
it really does. And so what else, how else do you, spend your time?
Well, I actually work.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm a teacher, by the way. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I work in a meat plant. So
Oh, that's
I
cool.
I started working in the meat plant in 1995 whenever I had usable vision.
Hmm.
So over the years, they just kept making accommodations for me. The more eyesight I lost, they just they just kept trying to keep me working. They didn't want to get rid of me just because I lost my eyesight.
Well, that's good.
So yeah, so I'm really happy about that. I'm really glad that they, decided to work with me like that. So that's pretty special for a company to do something like that.
Hmm. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. My out of interest, my maternal grandfather actually worked as a butcher as a young person. Did you ever work as a butcher?
No, I did cut a little bit of meat early. Well, early when I still had usable vision, but I usually ran like machines that cut meat or stuff like that.
Hmm. Okay. And how did you? That's interesting. How did you, find out about this? How did you get into that meat? The basically a modern day butcher shop. How did you get into that back then in the 90s?
Well, when I graduated high school, a friend of mine said he had a job interview and he just wanted me to go for a ride with him. We just graduated high school. And I said, yeah, I'll go for a ride with you. And here it ended up they wanted to hire two people. So when he went in for his interview, he came back out and he said, hey, you want a job too? They want to interview you. So and that's just pretty much how it came to be. And
Well, that's luck. Well, that's luck. That's
yeah,
that's really that's really good luck there. Yeah, yeah.
and my friend, he still works there also since 1995.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really neat. Yeah. So you can still have that friendship with him all these years. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. So what are you doing now at this meat plant?
Well, they have me in like cleaning like plastic bins and stuff through like a machine.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it just they bring all the work to me, so I don't have to walk out into the plant where there's forklifts and machines, other machines, and all the busy areas. It's just like a little room where I can work and be safe.
Well, good. I think it's really positive that they're able to still accommodate. Um, you
Yes, and
know,
they and
uh,
they
yeah,
they
good.
do it. They do everything they can to accommodate me, and I really love it. That company does that for me.
Cool, cool. Well, would you mind maybe saying what the company is, because it sounds like a good company.
Well, it's actually a restaurant. It's called Haas's Steak and Sea House. I'm not sure if
Ah,
you I'm not sure if you ever heard of it.
no, never. Okay, so then why would this? So if it's a restaurant, then you called it a meat plant. So is it a restaurant or a meat plant? Like,
Well, the meat plant cuts all the meat for the restaurants. Then they ship it to the restaurants.
mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much where they control all their quality from the meat plant, and then they can ship it out to the restaurants and have the same quality.
Okay, got got it, got it. So yeah, so basically you work for a basically the restaurant's butcher, basically the
Y-
restaurant's butcher shop or
yes.
butcher factory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of traveling all over the world. I've been to England, I've been to France 3 times because my second language is French. I've been to Amsterdam. I've also been to Austria, and I went to Vienna, and it was an organized tour, and they took us into a traditional butcher shop in Vienna. So being a butcher is still definitely a major job overseas.
Oh yeah. That's
Oh yeah,
still the same here in America too. It's a special skill.
definitely. Yeah, the butcher came out. A lot of people in our group. It was when I was in college, so they were, college age women. They were really, they were really creeped out by him because
Yeah.
he was a precisely a stereotypical butcher,
Yeah.
old, old, overworked, angry, and then of course, obviously, he had to have blood all
Oh
over
wow.
his coat. Oh yeah, yeah, he was into it. He was the butcher of Vienna, basically, in this major shop. Yeah, well, in Europe, it's the same thing. They butcher in the shop, and then but people actually buy from that butcher in the shop. So that's quite a living. Yeah, didn't know I'd be talking about a butcher shop tonight. My, but see that's why this is a great show. I never know what I'm going to talk about. I never know what's going to come out of a video with the guy walking to a pond. Why didn't you? Hey, why didn't you walk to a butcher shop to practice independence? Why did you have to walk to a pond? A blind person can be a butcher. So you should have said blind people can do anything, even being a butcher.
Oh, absolutely.
You should have walked to a butcher shop. That would have been cool. I mean, the pond was very beautiful and very peaceful, but it would have really gotten you a lot of views to like walk into your plant, walk into your butcher shop, and show like the meat being prepared and like cut into the different cuts. That
Oh
would have
yeah.
been that would have probably really scared some people off, but still, would have been pretty cool. Um, yeah, my maternal grandfather did that basically as a teenager and as a young person in the oh, early 50s, I guess
Oh, okay.
1950s. Yeah, his father emigrated from Poland.
Oh,
Next question. Why would someone from Poland, why, how he decided, why that person decided to be a butcher? Never knew. Never knew. I think it was a simple matter back then of, well, here's a butcher shop. Here's some money. Go. I think
yeah.
is how it was back then. But yeah, it brings up a fascinating part of my family's history. Then the butcher shop. I've never seen it. I've asked my parents. It's a long story. I live with my parents, my brother, and my very old and quite sickly old guide dog. She's kind of at the end of her lifetime, so I take care of her every day. She requires care.
Yeah.
Um, I've asked my parents, where is that butcher shop? And they say, oh well, now it's a 7-Eleven or something like that. But yeah, um, but my grandfather hated it, so he in the end he went to law school and
Oh
became a lawyer.
wow.
So it's kind of a joke in the butcher community. Why did why why did the butcher become a lawyer? Because nobody wants to because nobody wants to be the butcher. So
Yeah.
and I was walking around that butcher shop in it was the full factory. They took us on a special tour in the back where they had the full carcass. I mean that's a pretty bad job. You got to it needed to be skinned, and then we saw the skeletons and the whole
Doesn't
experience.
smell the best.
It certainly does not, and it's certainly a good job if you're very willing to pay attention to your surroundings and focus on what you're doing. It's a good job, but
Yeah.
yeah, my grandfather said he got all sorts of cuts, but butchers get cut up constantly. They hurt
Oh yeah.
themselves all the time. Yeah, and then back then there was a couple machines that were so dangerous. My great grandfather didn't let my grandfather use it. He was paranoid about it. There was one old fashioned machine that like severs the head or something like that. Some big, I don't even know what it's called. But before we scare away our listeners, so you also when you aren't a blind butcher, when you aren't doing that, and by the way, out of curiosity, how many hours do you work there each day?
Uh, we work 4 10-hour days, so 40
That's
hours a week.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that people can be a lot more productive 4 times a week for 10 hours. That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
little tough, but do you have a full hour for lunch and like a bathroom break and all that?
Yeah. Yeah. We have lunch or lunch breaks and just mid shift breaks, like 15-minute
Good.
breaks.
Good. This sounds like a good company, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really good. It sounds like well, in this in this
They're
day in this day and age, if a company is good, that's really quite encouraging. In the world today, a good company that's really encouraging. So
they're
yeah.
primarily based in Pennsylvania, so
Yeah, yeah. For personal reasons, my location is undisclosed. That's another long
okay.
story. But are you in Pennsylvania somewhere? Let's say.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, my brother just graduated from Temple, so he's
Oh, okay.
familiar. He's familiar with the Pennsylvania area. See, and that's the thing, listener. In a state like Pennsylvania, you can have countryside where it seems like you live. It seems like you live in the country,
Yes.
just based on that. Right, it looked like it. Or you can have major cities like Philadelphia. So, well, let's get into the metal detecting. So how did you get into that hobby?
Well,